Oh, well, we are a little bit early, but that's okay. Happy Wednesday, everybody. We are live a little bit sooner than I anticipated being live, but that's okay. Welcome to our weekly episode of Mr. Cashflow Live. We do these broadcasts every Wednesday afternoon and design them to help you increase your business or practice's cash flow and to introduce you to some great people and some subject matter experts that can be of help to you. The recorded version of this webinar will be located on Cashflow Strategies YouTube page. If you don't get to it live, or if you'd like to look at it again, you can come to youtube.com/cashflowstrategies Inc. If you subscribe to the YouTube channel and click the little bell for notification, it will let you know every week when we go live, and you can keep right up with us. Feel free to ask questions as we go along today. If you're watching the recorded version of the webinar or of the live stream, we'll get those answers back to you by email. So don't hesitate to ask questions even after the live stream is over. I am very excited to have my guest today, Stephen Johnson. He's the Executive Vice President of Varidi Incorporated. If you've heard me speak or you followed some of my videos, you've probably heard me talk about Varidi. I've been referring medical and dental clients to Varidi for years because I really believe that they could help a practice increase their case acceptance and their cash flow by providing a way for practices to have a fully managed, fully guaranteed in-house payment plan option to add to or replace their finance companies like CareCredit. I know a lot of the practices are working with CareCredit. But CareCredit denies a lot of people, and you may need another option, and this is a good one. I've asked Stephen if he would join me today on this episode of Mr. Cashflow Live to discuss why it's such a great option for medical and dental practices. So, Stephen, welcome to Mr. Cashflow Live today.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it. Appreciate the introduction and having me on board.
It's good to have you here with me. You know, I was telling you a little bit earlier that in talking to the medical and dental practices that I work with, when I bring up the idea of accepting payment plans, most of them will throw their hands up in self-defense and say, no, we don't do payment plans. We don't. And
right.
They're kind of afraid of it. And I think the reason is they're hard to manage. And most medical and dental software doesn't manage payment plans very well. And so they didn't know that there was another way of doing it, and I'm very happy to introduce them to it. A lot of them think that we're trying to replace traditional finance companies. How is what you do different than, say, what a CareCredit does?
Yeah, great question. I would say, honestly, a service like Varidi really complements any medical practice that is offering financing today. So, financing is not new. Payment plans are not new, but when you combine a financing option with a guaranteed payment option like what Varidi provides, then you have a much more well-rounded financial approach so that you can help more patients say yes. The reality, like you said, when you're using just traditional financing, you're going to run into roadblocks with people being approved, right? Somewhere in the neighborhood of 30, 40, 50 or more % of individuals will be denied on their credit application. And the beauty about Varidi is we approve 100% of people for a payment plan. Now, the payment plan by itself is not a novel idea, right? People have been offering payment plans for a long time.
Hesitantly.
Right? But we changed the game a little bit because we put a guarantee along with that. And what that simply means is if the patient stopped making their payment, Varidi steps in and we continue to move that payment stream along at no additional cost to the medical practice, so that they have it's not insurance, but it's kind of like insuring your payment plan with our guarantee. So the best thing to do is always get payment today, right? We're not ever going to argue with somebody who's trying to take a debit card or credit card payment, and then if you can get them approved with financing, fantastic. But for those that can't get approved, offer a solution like Varidi, and you have a wonderful kind of waterfall approach of being able to help patients.
Yeah, you've mentioned when we were talking this idea about the payment waterfall. unique idea, and I think it's a great option, something that I hadn't thought of. It kind of explain the payment waterfall a little bit to the viewers.
Yeah. So just, I think there's there's three routes to take. The challenge is a lot of time offices, well, first of all, offices don't like to talk about money. And so it's uncomfortable for some people. So I hope that the people listening here, talk to you or talk to me about, how they can make their staff more comfortable having financial conversations with their patients, because they need to, because their business depends on it, or their future growth depends on it. So
Absolutely.
offering payment in full is a no-brainer. And then picking up on signs like people being hesitant. So the next kind of stage of the waterfall is, the second somebody's hesitant, you should be offering a financing option. Like you said before, people are very familiar with Care Credit, and if that's what the people have been using, great. Just make sure you're doing it every time, right? If somebody makes an excuse like, "Hey, I need to go talk to my spouse," I've got a really busy schedule. When you think about it, the office should interject and say, "Hey, let's start looking at payment plan options." And if the person can't qualify, or is perhaps in a spot where they don't want to go down a credit route, because one of the beauties about Verity is that it is a non-credit based option. So we make a approval without having to run that person's credit. So if somebody doesn't want to have their credit run, we can help them. So the first stage is payment in full. Second stage, financing, and then the third stage is Verity, where you can do a payment plan. And of course, you could do your own in-house payment plans, right? But the main challenge people don't like doing it is they don't want to manage it. And we automate the entire process, and they don't want to take on the risk. Well, what happens if 6 months later David stops paying me? And that's where our guarantee comes in.
And that's what usually happens in most cases that I run into. Of course, I do collections. So,
Yes.
those are the ones I do run into. But that's what they're afraid of. Somebody's going to stop making payments. And then they've got to go back and start making phone calls again and start sending letters and notices and things again. And they just don't want to do it. This way, they
Right.
don't have to, right?
Exactly. It's a push of a button to activate our guarantee. All that we require is that the initial payment, the first payment, is captured, which is done in real time. So there's no, question or ambiguity if the initial payment is kind of like, when you buy something in person, whether or not your card got approved or declined. So we make
Right.
it very easy for the office to know that the payment was captured. And then we just ask for a driver's license or a form of a government ID when they submit or click the button to activate the guarantee, right? From a collection standpoint, right? If we submit something to TSI, you want to make sure that you have some information on who that person is, and so we just
Right.
ask for that basic information from the office.
So how can you possibly approve 100% of the patients with no credit check? I mean, is
Yeah.
that smart for you guys to do?
Well, there are a couple limiting. There are some factors. We play in a sandbox, if you will, of about a $500 price point to a $2,500 price point or more in some cases. You can always go more, you can always go less. But if you just want to think about a range, if we're talking to some of your dental clientele, for instance, of course they do higher end cosmetic work at some offices that might be $10, $15, $20,000. That's really not the sweet spot for us. But for your general dentist, your orthodontist, we have payment plans that fit perfectly in those price points. So we do say yes to everyone. Now, if somebody has just very low financial indicators, they make $800 a month. Well, it doesn't really make sense to have them on a $400 a month, $4,000 payment plan over the course of 10 months, because half of their income can't go to their dental bill. That's just, poor stewardship on behalf of dentists. If we were to say, yes, go ahead and do that, there's no way they're going to make those payments. So there is kind of a range that we play in, but we're able to do that without offering or without running someone's credit, because we do require that first payment to be made, which is roughly 20% of the total cost of the plan. And it is in addition to, so if you're looking at a $2,000 treatment, it's about $400 that would be due today. So that over the course of, say, 10, 12, 15 months, whatever the office chooses as the term, the patient is ultimately going to pay $2,400 for that $2,000 treatment. Some people are like, oh my gosh, I would never pay, that amount. Now, it's interesting for people to know that the average credit card rate that somebody has that has mediocre or poor
Exactly.
credit is over 20%, right? And how often do dentist offices ask, do you really want to put this on your credit card? Are you going to pay this off in time? Probably most of the offices just assume that like they, like them, they're going to, pay it off at the end of the month. Which isn't the case for a lot of people. They need the convenience of breaking up those payments over time.
Well, and even Care Credit offers the interest-free options, but if you don't make those payments within 12 months or within whenever, the interest rate is huge.
Yeah, like
And
reverse
most
to,
people
as
don't
high as
realize it. They say, "Oh, it's interest-free, and I'll do it," and most of
yeah.
them wind up paying interest on it.
Yeah, it's a great option for people who manage their money very well and can pay off the amount in that maybe 12-month time frame. But it's hard to pay off a $4,000 balance in 12 months, right? That's a very hefty monthly obligation. So if they
Absolutely.
don't, then all of a sudden, like you said, it skyrockets the interest rate. So we don't charge interest. We do charge the fee up front, but there is no additional interest to the patient. So there's not other little hooks or I gotchas.
Let me interject here. If you have any questions as we go along, please type them into the question box. We'll try and answer those live. And if you're watching the recorded version, just send us the question and we will be more than happy to answer you either through social media or through email as well. I will also say that if you are interested in a demo of what Varidi has to offer, you can go to this website and that will take you to their calendar. You can schedule a 15-minute demo at your convenience. I'll put this up again later on in the broadcast, but if you'd like to schedule that, you can go to that website and schedule that right away. So ask your questions and we'll keep going. Steve, what kind of a financial impact to a practice can Varidi bring?
So we find with our clients that just adopt Varidi as a part one of their financial tools, right? We aren't the financial option, and I'll keep reiterating it. It's better to take money today. We're never going to convert all of your patients into payment plans. I think sometimes doctors have irrational fears about that. Like just because a payment plan's offered, now everyone moves to payment plans. It's really a relatively small percentage of the total patient base. So where we see an impact is about $5,000 to $10,000 a month in additional production, right? $5,000 to $10,000 a month that
That's
probably
nothing to
was
sneeze
walking
at.
out the door. No, it's not. It's maybe 4 cases a month, about $2,000 per case, one a week that we're maybe too embarrassed to ask for payment options and the office didn't pick up on the cues. Like, hey, maybe we should, maybe the reason this person isn't scheduling this treatment is they have money concerns. Well, let me help them by, offering some suggestions, right? It doesn't have to be Varidi, but something, having that kind of ingrained mentality to always kind of try to seek the highest good for that patient, which is what can we do to help you?
Well,
So
it would
go ahead.
that would also increase the reputation of the practice. I would think people are gonna, if they're putting reviews out, they're gonna say, they did everything they could to help me get the treatment I needed.
Yeah.
If you're offering more assistance, you're going to have more loyal patients. Plus, if you can get a patient to accept the case for the first time, you've not only gotten one case, you've gotten that patient for life. And maybe their family.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
it's harder to
Yeah.
calculate, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, we have no way of calculating the trickle down financial impact of that one patient. But once you establish a relationship with somebody, because maybe you're more flexible than the practice down the street, who just kind of I have a funny story. My son was in a Starbucks. He was, I think, 7 at the time. He's 10 now, but he was in a Starbucks and he was in karate, and so he's practicing kicks and not quite fully coordinated yet, and his plant foot left him, and he just completely face planted into the linoleum floor in the middle of a crowded Starbucks. And I used to live in the Seattle area, so there's a Starbucks on every corner. And so broke his tooth. He has big front teeth. I think he'd only had him for maybe a year, right? He lost his baby teeth. And so, first of all, I had no idea what this was going to cost me, right? Like, I'm looking at this jagged front tooth. So there's a dental office in town. Obviously, I'm always curious what people are going to say when you ask about different payment options. And called the dentist that we had gone to in the past that was kind of down the street, explained the situation. She wasn't, of course, able to give me kind of a price point, but I asked her about, payment plans or anything. And she was like, oh no, we got to schedule it. We got to see it, whatever. She left a really, all she would talk about was the doctor being able to see him. It wasn't trying to give me because I was definitely making it known that price was a concern for me. Cause I'm thinking this is going to cost me $2,000, something along those lines. Well,
He doesn't really need that tooth.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Just he's 7, you won't even notice it for a couple of years. I forget that he still has a fake tooth because it's it looks the where we ended up going looks so good. Well, I made a couple other phone calls and yeah, I kind of said the same thing. And this one office was like, yes, we have flexible options. We have dental membership plans. We have payment plans. And so I made it. It turned out it was only $400, and I paid for it, with cash. But I would have been a lot more tempted to maybe use a payment plan if it was going to be $2,000 like I expected.
Sure. And the reputation of that practice will always be there, that they're.
And so I have 3 kids. My other 2, have gone there. It's a pediatric dental office, so I don't go there. But I have 3 kids. That's where my 3 kids went. And we went, it's a little bit of a further drive, but, I like their approach and how they handled the initial call. And I did like how the office that we had gone to in the past handled the call.
It's so much more than the patient that's standing across the desk from you at that moment. It can mean, whatever the life value of a patient and their family is. It's really important when we're talking about cash flow, especially. That's very, very important. So tell me again how the Varidi payment guarantee works.
Yeah, great. So always a big question, and a sticking point, because like I said earlier, just putting somebody on a payment plan isn't uniquely special, right? Like offices have had the capability using their software or payment processor to be able to do this. What makes it special with Varidi is that once you set up the plan, which can take as little as 1 to 2 minutes, I'd say the average plan takes about 4 minutes to run the patient through the process. But after that is set up, and then the initial payment is collected, then we're guaranteeing the remainder of the payments that we have on the plan. And let's say 6 months go by, and now the person's missed their payment. We have a process to go through to try to get the person back on track. But because a lot of times it's just an honest mistake, right? Like people didn't mean to, oh, I forgot, I switched banks, I got a new card, I forgot to update it, with Varidi or the office. So if we can't get the person back on track in 20 days, we kind of give them a little bit of a buffer. The office gets sent an email with the ability, like I said earlier, a click of a button, they can activate the guarantee. All we ask is that they upload as a copy of a driver's license. So once they activate the guarantee, they're kind of removing themselves from the process. And we step in and we start making that identical monthly payment until the obligation for the guarantee is met. Now, the reason that we ask the office to initiate the process and we just don't do it automatically is because we don't want to send the patient directly to collections without the office's authority, right? This is a payment plan between the office and the patient. The patient doesn't know, nor should they, that there's a guarantee behind the scenes with Varidi. So, and since we are not a collection agency, the office is essentially giving the right to us to forward that on to an agency so that we can recoup some of our loss. But we do charge, setup fee to the patient at the beginning of the plan because we know that there are going to be a number of people who default. So, and the reason that we have to charge roughly 20%, it's really 15 or 20% to the patient, is because we know roughly 10% of people in the medical field are going to default on their payment plans. This isn't for retail customers. We're not doing this with new TVs at at Costco. This is because there's no relationship between that individual and that TV at Costco. So this is just for medical offices, generally speaking, because they have recurring visits with those patients.
One of the complaints that I hear from my clients repeatedly is the high interest rate that the finance companies charge the practice. And one of the things
the discount to the practice or the
yeah, they charge them a high percentage as a discount rate. So one of the things that they were looking for when they complained to me about it is, how do we get out of paying that high a discount rate? Talk about a little bit about the discount rate that you use with Varidi.
Yeah, so our discount rate is going to be between 3 and 5%. When you sign up with Varidi as a new client,
Say that again, because they don't believe me. No, they don't believe me when I tell them it's only 3 to 5%.
It's 3 to 5%. So the good news is the discount is definitely reduced from sometimes people paying 10, 15% or more. The way it works with financing is either the patient's going to pay a higher interest rate or the practice is going to pay a higher discount rate. So they get to kind of choose, right? And some offices can drive down the patient interest rate, but they have to pay a higher discount rate or vice versa. So we keep it simple. It's 3 to 5%. And but what I would say, just to be transparent, the issue that sometimes people have with us and why we're not necessarily the first option is because we're guaranteeing payment over time versus somebody gets approved for financing and they get 90% of their money today. Instead, they're going to get 97% of their money over time with Varidi. So I understand the value of getting money today, but what offices need to understand is they just can't let people walk out the door and get nothing. Like I would much, if I had the option today of getting paid $100 a month for the next 12 months or getting nothing, I would choose the $100 a month for the next 12 months.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's where the payment plans get the bad rap sometimes.
Value to money.
Right. So I'm always shocked that people, and a lot of times, and I get it, like, man, I don't want to manage it. I don't want to take the risk. What happens? I got to send people letters when they miss payments or whatever the case may be. We take on that whole responsibility. So our customer service team, manages emails, text messages, phone calls, all of the communication that goes to the patient comes with Varidi's contact information. So if somebody does miss a payment, they're not calling the dental office. And I keep using dental office as an example. I know you have a nice variety of medical offices that you work with, but they're not calling the doctor saying, hey, here's my new card, and kind of, clogging up the system with just a nuisance phone call. That's what our staff is there for. So we're helping people all day long stay on track with their payment plans by providing extra levels of customer support.
Again, if you have any questions, go ahead and type them into the question box. One more question I wanted to ask you, Stephen, before we go. You just told me about a new solution for orthodontics and aligners. I'm excited because when you talk payment plans, they're all doing payment plans, all of them, and having trouble managing them. So tell me about the new service.
Yeah, so we have a ortho plan, and we never had a good fit for years. We had the right price point. Basically, our guarantee at $2,500 was too low, right? A lot of the guarantee, the cost point was a lot higher for aligners or braces, and then the 15 to 20% setup fee was too high. And so what we were able to do was we created a level payment plan for specifically for ortho. And the reason it's specific for ortho is because of the repeat nature of their patients, right? You just can't get your braces done or your liners done in one visit, right? You have to keep coming back. So there's more of a relationship. A lot of times children are involved, and, people will pay for their kids before, they would worry about themselves, let's say. And so there's just a higher, there's a default rate, but it's just lower. So we charge a 10% fee. So let's use the example of $4,000, and we'll break up those payments over, let's say, 20 months. So we charge a setup fee of 10%. So that $4,000 becomes $4,400. And then when you, but you divide that by the number of payments. So if it was 20 payments, I think I'm doing the math right. Is that $240 a payment? So it would be $240 a payment for 20 months. So to the patient, it feels uniform. The setup fee still of $400 still goes to Varidi. So the first couple payments go to Varidi basically day 0 and day 30. And then the remainder of the payments flow to the practice. And if somebody goes sideways in the future, then they can still activate their guarantee. And they've basically got a $4,000 guarantee for their patient. The patient only pays 10%, and the practice has a discount of 5%. So it's a great way to kind of shift away from doing it themselves and sign up with Varidi, get set up with Varidi, and we handle the payment plans with the protection of the guarantee if something goes wrong 12 months later.
That is phenomenal. And I know a lot of orthodontic offices that are going to be very, very excited to hear that. Yeah. They just can't stand managing their payment plans. And many of them just don't have the time and staffing to do it and to do it properly. And to have somebody be able to do that for them at a reasonable cost without making it hard for the patients. Great idea for case acceptance. I am absolutely thrilled. Any last words, Stephen? Any last thoughts?
No, but I would say I have a really cool webinar I did specific to the ortho plans that we did through our partners at Gargle, who manage a lot of dental offices. They kind of help construct the plan. And so I would be happy to send that out to someone so that they can see a doctor speaking firsthand about how it's benefited their practice financially by having that other option.
It was great. Yeah. Go ahead and just leave that in the question box. If you'd like to get a link to that webinar, leave it in the question box and I'll make sure that Stephen gets it and gets it to you as quickly as possible. And you can see actually how it worked for an orthodontist who is currently using it. That would be great.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me, David. I really appreciate it. It's always been nice to talk to you over the years, and really glad to see all the work that you're doing through this channel.
It has been fun to work together. Thanks for joining me, Stephen. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Join me next Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern when my guests will be Lawrence Isaacson of LSI Advisory Group and Russ Lindmark of Optimally LLC. Optimally is a new partner with Cash Flow Strategies, and I'm excited about it. They use big data to help businesses and practices significantly reduce their operating expenses, up to 25% at no cost. I'll say that again, up to 25% reduced operating expenses at no cost to you. It's going to be a good session. Please join us for it. And until next week, as always, I'm Mr. Cashflow, David Weiner from Cash Flow Strategies. After all, it's your money. Keep more of it.